Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. You're watching Maverick News, and this is the Freedom Reporters. Flying solo right now, at least for the first portion of this show, but my co-host Brendan Kennedy will be joining us very shortly. Lots of stuff on tap for you tonight. We're going to be talking about the People's Convoy, bringing you up to date on where things are at with the People's Convoy in the U.S., and we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening on the Canadian side of the border as efforts are made to keep the freedom movement alive in the aftermath of the police crackdown and government crackdown on freedom fighters, freedom truckers in Canada. We're also going to talk about warmongers. Warmongers like Lindsay Graham, Senator Lindsay Graham from the United States, who has today called for the assassination of Vladimir Putin. That has set off a firestorm of controversy, and his comments, not just controversial, possibly even illegal in terms of international law. And it kind of shows you the sorry state that things have deteriorated to with regard to the conflict in Ukraine. Also on the freedom front in Canada, Randy Hillier, a member of provincial parliament in the province of Ontario, has announced he's not going to run for re-election. Now, Randy was supposed to be the leader of the Ontario First Party, but it doesn't look like things have materialized on that front. And in the province of Ontario, in Canada, the provincial political landscape, especially on the conservative side, is something of a real mess right now. It's very fragmented. You have a lot of new parties on the radar there who have splintered off from the traditional Conservative Party in Ontario, and that is possibly going to split that vote up when it comes time for people to go to the polls this coming summer. What I'll do first of all is let's cue up Randy Hillier's statement. Now, Randy Hillier has been on the front lines of the freedom movement and has been a key voice when it comes to lockdowns. He's headed up the No More Lockdowns campaign in Canada, and he's been a strong voice on that side of the aisle. But he's endured a lot, more than most people could probably stand. He's put himself out there. He's taken a lot of risks, not just politically, but personally. He, as he said, he can probably wallpaper his entire house with the number of tickets he's received for protesting since the beginning of the pandemic, and the implementation of all these lockdown measures and mask mandates and so on. But this is a statement that came down last night. It was something that he issued just after I became aware of it, just after we signed off last night. I wish we'd had this for you last night, but we're going to start with it today, and we can talk a little bit about this. And here's Randy Hillier explaining why he's doing what he's doing, and give some real insight into the sad state of today's political scene in Canada.
My name is Randy Hillier. I'm the independent member for the Ontario Legislature representing the riding of Lanark-Frontenac in Kingston. I've got an important message for today, a message that will be greeted with sadness by some, and that will be greeted with glee by others. In fact, it'll be much like what has happened to our society these days, where We live in a very polarized society. People are either right or wrong. There is no in between. There is no room for discussion or nuance, context, or circumstances. We've seen this play out to our detriment over the last couple of years. And I would say it's getting worse. It's not getting better. There's many reasons for it. I'm not going to go into all the reasons. But I think if anyone looks at the state of Canadian society today, the state of political discourse and debate in Canada, they will recognize that there is a level of vitriol, a level of animus, invective, that is present today that to the degree we've never before seen. But let me first address a couple other items. I've been an elected member for 15 years. I've been successful in 4 elections. I've had the support of the people of Lanark-Frontenac for 15 years, often with very substantial majorities. And in the last few years, especially since I came out opposing the narrative that we were living in the most dangerous times of COVID, that warranted the destruction of our representative democracy, warranted states of emergency, and the suspension of civil liberties, the trampling of our charter protected rights and freedoms. I have been offside with public opinion. Many people in the public clamored and encouraged our governments to take these excessive measures to allay their fears, to allay the anxiety. We have, in effect, been ruled by the mob for the last couple of years. And I don't see that ending anytime soon. And as part of that, I have been condemned by a number of municipal councils in my area. Condemned because I dared have a different view, a contrary view, a view that the virus did not require us to trample our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, did not require us to close up our businesses, our schools, our healthcare, that these were all unnecessary. And the facts and evidence have borne this out. Every measure that we've taken has had limited or no effect, beneficial effect on the spread of the virus. Everything that we have done has caused far more harm, far more injury to far more people than what the virus ever could. But because I had this dissenting view and was willing to share it and be public and to be vocal about this, it wasn't just municipal councils that condemned me. It was not just the media parrots who condemned me, but also the Ontario legislature has condemned me now on 2 occasions. The last one has now taken the never before seen action of actually preventing me from being in the legislature and representing that point of view, or my constituents' point of view, or my constituents who share my view, which is a substantial number. The Speaker has been authorized not to recognize me, not to permit me to table motions or order paper questions. The House has authorized the Speaker to prevent me from asking questions or attending committees. And this is all apparently now because of some tweets that I put out. And let me be very clear on this. I stand by those messages. I don't stand by the lies that have been attributed to those messages. I don't stand with the exaggerations and the embellishments that people have taken liberty with those tweets. I've stated quite clearly that if people are upset with our institutions and our government, they should feel free to contact those institutions and our government and express their displeasure. That is what a civil society does. That's what a democracy does. But I have been condemned for saying just that. When our federal cabinet and our premier instituted policies that precipitated and created the Freedom Convoy, those policies that would prevent truckers from traveling to the United States, picking up much needed commodities, necessities, including food, and we were seeing impacts of that. I put a message out. I put a press release out. I stated quite clearly that any government that would purposely put in place policies that would disrupt our food supply in the middle of winter must be considered terrorism. I said that is applicable to both Doug Ford, his cabinet, and Justin Trudeau in his cabinet. Not once did I mention the race, creed, color, ethnicity of any member in those cabinets. I said it was applicable to all of them. The mainstream media and my political opponents have suggested that I'm racist because I called Justin Trudeau and his cabinet terrorists. They have pointed out that there is an individual within that cabinet who is a Muslim, who, there's many Muslims in Canadian society. There's many Muslims in the Ontario legislature and the federal parliament. I never once mentioned or identified anyone's ethnicity. In my view, everyone who impacts our food supply purposely is engaged in an act of terrorism. I stand by that. But for these reasons, and of course, my opposition to the trampling of our civil liberties and my outspokenness, I'm no longer permitted to be recognized in the legislature, leaving the people of Lanark-Frontenac without a voice in the legislature. Now, of course, our government in Ontario has started on their steps a year ago. In February of 2021, they implemented a mandatory mask rule that you could not go into the legislature without wearing a mask, even though the evidence was overwhelming that the mask had no impact on the spread of the virus. I refused, as I always have. I will not play this game, this dangerous game of fear, this narrative of danger that suggests and symbolizes that people are dangerous vectors of disease. It is wholly repugnant. This mandatory mask measure does nothing to stop the spread of the virus, but it does everything to amplify the falsehood of fear and danger. But that was not enough for the Ontario legislature. In September of 2021, they also implemented a mandatory vax and test procedure for all members. If you were not vaxxed, they were not going to permit you to enter the House. They had one exception to that. If you wanted to engage and test with a test that we know is faulty, that by the government's own words, own statements, own evidence demonstrates that both the rapid antigen test and the PCR test provide false positives. But they made a rule. If you took these tests, if you weren't vaxxed, they would permit you in under certain conditions. Again, this is a measure to amplify the fear, exaggerate the danger, and demonstrate to the fearful mob that our government is doing something when in fact they're doing the opposite of something good. They are engaged in negligent, dangerous behavior. For 15 years, it's been very much a roller coaster being in political life. I have had the great pleasure of assisting so many people, assisting and helping out and speaking out for those who are facing the injustice of government. Has been a absolutely rewarding time. However, with public life, with partisan politics, also comes the negative, and that is the actual partisan politics, where political parties and members of political party do not make choices and decisions based on what is beneficial to our constituents. Political caucuses make choices and decisions based on what is beneficial for the political party. Make no mistake whatsoever. At no time does a political party recognize the interests of their constituents when they decide how they will vote on a policy or what policy to bring in. It is done solely and only to the benefit of the political party. Our political system is dysfunctional. It is not a representative democracy. At best, it may be considered a stakeholder or corporate democracy, in my view, because corporate interests, stakeholder interests in the party are what drives the agenda. And we saw this during the recent Freedom Convoy in Ottawa, where Justin Trudeau needlessly and recklessly instituted the Emergencies Act, where he said a convoy that was protesting COVID policies, a convoy and a protest of people who were festive, who were having fun, expressing their dissatisfaction. A protest where there was bouncy castles and hot tubs and pancake breakfasts was characterized by our Prime Minister as an insurrection and an attempt to overthrow the government. I was there for 3 weeks. Not once did I see any violence. Not once did I see any aggression. And now, a few weeks after implementing the Emergency Act and the abusive, violent use of force by police to remove that protest, not one charge has been levied other than public mischief. There has been no charges of criminality. There has been no seizure of firearms or body armor. All the charges have been public mischief, to the best of my knowledge. That we use the Emergency Measures Act for. But also during that debate on the Emergency Act, 338 elected representatives voted, and they voted in favor. But what was interesting, not one of them voted against their party line. Not one of them had the courage or the resolve or the intellect to do other than what their party directed them to do. These are not constituent representatives. These are party representatives. They are representatives of the stakeholders or the corporate interests. They are not representatives of the people in their ridings. In my view, I've come to the conclusion that there is not a political solution to what ails our society. The division, the polarization, the animus, the censorship, the suppression of views, these will not be fixed politically. Indeed, as I speak, our federal government is enacting even further legislation to restrict political opposition, to censor views, to criminalize opposing views. I'll go back and say, what ought to be clear to everyone, what is clear to me, is we use the term leaders to describe politicians. But politicians are not leaders. They follow public opinion. They follow, they do not lead. We've seen this very clearly in the last couple of years, that politicians are too fearful to speak truthfully and honestly with the people in our country. They're too fearful and cowardly to have an opinion that goes against the mainstream narrative. They cannot defend anything other than what the narrative is. I know many people in elected office who shared and share my views shared my views that COVID was not as dangerous as it was purported to be, that the danger was exaggerated. But they didn't speak out. They were dishonest to themselves. They were dishonest to the people in their communities. They were fearful of being removed from caucus. They were fearful of being scorned by the media. We are living in a dishonest age where honesty has no value anymore, where dishonesty is the currency of politics. The only solution, the only way that we can ever get back to a free and prosperous country, a country that does have a representative democracy, a country that does respect the rule of law, human rights, our civil liberties, our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, is if we re-engage with people and help shape public opinion, help people understand the value of freedom. On June 2nd, I will not be contesting for the seat of Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston. Our political system is broken. There is no sense spending any more time trying to fix a broken system from within when the problem lies without. I'll continue to be outspoken, and I'll continue to be a voice for freedom. And I look forward continuing to work with so many good people who do recognize the danger, and look forward to working with them as we help shape public opinion, help restore the view and the understanding that freedom, healthy discussion, debate will bring us prosperity, will bring us enjoyment, and will end this age of dishonesty that we have embraced in Canada and Ontario today. I hope you enjoyed this message. Please feel free to share and comment.
And he's back. He's joining us now. He's alive and well and as charming as ever. How are you tonight, Brendan?
Doing well, sir, and yourself?
I'm okay. Here, hang on. Let me get rid of that.
Yeah, I was like... People didn't come here to watch that.
Enough of that. So what did you think of Randy Hillier's statement?
I think it's pretty heartbreaking. We'd first listened to that last night, and I'd listened to it again this morning, and he sounds like a broken man. They broke him, I think. And he hit the nail on the head with so much, and he's done so much for his country. Being one of the first people to speak out in Ontario legislature about COVID-19 issues and problems, and being consistent all the way through with it. And he touches on quite a bit about party politics, which I think is probably one of the biggest issues that we are undergoing right now, that the politicians aren't representing the constituents anymore, and they're more worried about corporate interests in so many ways. And that he makes the same observation that you frequently do, that politicians are not leading and that they're following public opinion, which I thought that was very insightful. He highlights the major issues of our politics, that there's been so much rot undergoing with it for so long now. And we did cover the incident where he was no longer allowed to be acknowledged by the Speaker of the House in Ontario legislature. We did acknowledge when that happened that he had called government members terrorists, and because some of them are of Arab descent, they took great offense to that, and they blocked him from being able to speak in the House. He's right, we need to get honesty back. Because with honesty, somebody's feelings are always going to get hurt with it, but hurt feelings are a small price to pay for the truth, I think.
Randy Hillier has been consistent right from the beginning of this whole pandemic. He never flip-flopped. He never waffled. He was there right at the beginning, calling out things that he saw as inconsistent or untruthful, things that posed a threat to our rights and freedoms. And he stood there fearlessly and took it on the chin every day. He was out there on the front lines fighting every day. Out at demonstrations, rallies, and at Queen's Park. Always fighting. He never looked at public opinion polls and used those to guide his decisions with regard to any of this. And for that, I have a huge amount of respect for him. He was on the ground in Ottawa for almost the entire protest and was showing the truckers that they had his full support. Yes, he's a political figure, and sometimes people are uncomfortable with politicians, and they're not sure how to interpret support like that sometimes. But in his case, personally, it's my personal opinion, I think that he was very genuine in what he was doing there and what he did throughout the pandemic. I don't know that his voice is going to be lost, but losing his voice at Queen's Park is a huge blow to the freedom movement, because that's where decisions are made. That's where votes are taken. That's where the power is. And if you don't have a voice in Parliament, provincially or federally, the people who subscribe to those particular views don't have a voice. Randy Hillier it's not Randy Hillier's voice that has been silenced at Queen's Park. It's the people he represents. And in his case, it is not just the people from his riding, from the Kingston area. It's people all across Ontario and even, honestly, across Canada. That's who he has been representing, people who are concerned about the preservation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Canadian Constitution, the preservation of Canadians' rights and freedoms. That's what he's been fighting for. And what they've done to him is disgraceful, honestly. Preventing him from participating in the daily operations at Queen's Park. They've prevented him from doing his job. They've decided that his voice doesn't count. That has all the earmarks of fascism, where communism as well. But I'm coming to the conclusion that what we're really dealing with in this country is a new form of fascism, and that's what we have in place at Queen's Park and in Ottawa. And I would argue, I think in every province provincially as well. And for that matter, even at the local level in politics, our political system is not systemically racist. Our political system has been broken. It's systemically dysfunctional because it has been infiltrated by a new fascist ideology, a neo-fascism, a type of fascism that I think they describe today in a Bernie Sanders kind of way, where they describe it as democratic socialism. And people need to realize and understand that the Nazis in World War II under Hitler were socialists. They were the National Socialists Workers' Party. National Socialists. And Nazis and fascists in Germany in World War II were much more closely aligned ideologically with communists, who also have socialism as an underpinning of their ideology, than they ever were with what we would consider today to be a traditional conservative or even a liberal in the traditional sense in the West. Since World War II, people have been taught that communists and socialists are over on the left, and fascists and Nazis are over on the right. And I've never subscribed to that idea. I know that fascists, Nazis, communists, socialists, they're all over on the left side of the political spectrum. It's just they implement it in slightly different ways. And the reason we haven't really been able to recognize what's been going on is because it's been a slow process where this has evolved in our political system. And politicians like Randy Hillier have become a victim to it. And our society has become a victim to it. Our freedom is gone because of it. And there's a lot more that I'd like to say about it. We don't have to get into it in a deep way right now, but a lot of what's been going on, I think, will blow people's minds when we explore this further, because this all goes back to World War II and even before that. But especially a lot of this hinges around everything that happened during World War II and afterward, where a lot of Nazis were given freedom by Western countries, including the United States, Canada, and even Russia. Went after some of the recruited Nazis and gave them freedom instead of holding them accountable for the actions of the Nazis during World War II. A perfect example is Operation Paperclip and the United States recruiting German scientists and bringing them into the United States. A lot more to say about all of that later, but the point is freedom remains under assault tonight. And a lot of people are not able to connect the dots, but the war in Ukraine that's ongoing right now, the pandemic, the freedom convoy in Ottawa, the People's Convoy down in the United States, all of these things are actually connected. They're all connected. At the heart of it all is our society and freedom. And we are under attack tonight. And we're going to check in with the People's Convoy here momentarily and find out where they're at. Did you have something you wanted to bring up here, Brendan?
Yeah, so I mean, although it may be sad that Ontario is losing Randy Hillier, the good news is we are also losing Christine Elliott, the Deputy Premier of Ontario, and she is an absolute monster. She's been the Minister of Health for a very long time, and she's been in politics for a very long time. Yeah, so I mean, we may be losing Randy Hillier, but we're also getting rid of Christine Elliott, who, I don't know, I don't think I could do it justice all the way, but she essentially doesn't listen to people. She doesn't want to talk about any of the issues around COVID or anything like that. It's always our way or the highway. And I've learned with this situation, I never want to see a majority government in my life ever again after this nightmare we've been through.
Yeah, Howe's 1960 says, in my opinion, the Nuremberg trials were a show trial for the people. Did the Nazis lose the war? Nope. They changed the game and infiltrated world governments. And that is really what we're going to be talking about in maybe a little bit more later tonight, but certainly in future episodes. Yes, I absolutely believe that. And it's a lot of it sounds crazy, but yes, Tim, Tim Kidd, I agree with you. And that's why, can you bring up that photo of Chrystia Freeland again, Brendan?
Yeah.
And I'm not bringing it up just because I want to smear her or make light of this in any way, or I'm doing this because there's real value in looking at this. Because this is, there's so much that people in Canada and the United States just are not aware of because it's being hidden from them, or it hasn't been taught in schools. People don't know enough about not just their local history, their country's history, but they don't know enough about international history and international politics. So again, here's Chrystia Freeland, Canada's Deputy Prime Minister. She studied in Russia. She has family ties to Ukraine. She knows the history. She's university educated. And here she is at a rally in Toronto supporting the war in Ukraine in front of and holding a Nazi banner. That's a banner from a Nazi group called the Banderites. And I'm not using the phrase Nazi in a pejorative way just to insult someone the way that she has when she uses Nazis, which describes truckers, freedom truckers as Nazis, or working class people as Nazis. No, that's an actual Nazi group with ties all the way back to Nazi Germany, a long history, a history where they've hunted down and killed people that they don't like. And these people involved today with that Nazi group from Ukraine are still active. And there are a number of large, very influential Nazi groups active in Ukraine today. Nazi groups that have been there for a long time, since World War II. And there's Chrystia Freeland not posing, but
Yeah, she's posing. Look at the big old
Yeah.
smile. She's posing with it. And
And
she's
she
holding
knows.
on to it. She knows she's getting her picture taken with it.
and she knows full well what it is. This is not an oops moment. Oh, I didn't know that what it was. She knows.
Big time. She knows exactly what that is.
More than that, Brendan, here's the problem. Our government is being run by people. Our governments, our Western governments today have been infiltrated. She's a liberal in name only. She wears the liberal brand, just as Justin Trudeau does. But these people have been educated, have gone to the.
I believe she went to Harvard.
Yes, she did. And she also went to she's one of the, what do they call them? The young global leaders from the World Economic Forum.
Mm-hmm.
And mark my words, that organization is run by elitists who are today's modern equivalent of Nazis. Judge people not by the brand they wear or by the political party that they belong to. Judge them by their actions. When you see a government and politicians censoring people, deplatforming people, imprisoning political opponents, acting like a fascist, acting like a Nazi, then I would say you're dealing with a Nazi. We need to wake up. We need to wake up. Canada has been lost. And we need to get it back. And what's going on in Ukraine right now? Not exactly the way it's being laid out for you by the mainstream media. Not even by a long shot. Be very, very careful about the information you're absorbing from the mainstream media. Question everything. There's so much that they're not telling you. So much. This is an information war, and I guess this is as good a time as any to ask for your support. If you can support us, go to freedomreporters.com. That's where you can donate to help us cover the costs of producing these broadcasts and practicing this new form of journalism. This is an information war as much as anything else, and we are fighting that war. The information war. That's why we are here. That's why I resurrected this news platform that we used to operate years ago, and I sort of put it into hibernation. But after discussing things with Brendan, when we saw these freedom convoys starting up, and we realized that there was going to be a massive misinformation propaganda campaign launched, we knew we had to fill a void for people. And that's why we're here, to facilitate discussion and open the lines of communication so that people can explore ideas and find more perspectives that will allow them to get, hopefully, to a better, more accurate version of the truth than you're going to get, than you are able to get just by watching the mainstream media and the government state-funded propaganda. We need your help. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of work, and it takes resources to do what we're doing. Just 10 minutes before tonight's broadcast, I received a message from a viewer and a contact, a source, who has forwarded to me information about a giant data dump with hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents with information that I have yet to I have not been able to go through any of it yet, but there's information in there about the Vegas shooting. There's stuff in there about the pandemic, Pfizer documents, all kinds of stuff. And I'll be going through a lot of it tonight, as soon as we're off this broadcast, and we'll be sharing a lot of that stuff with you. But that's going to take time, and we need resources to get a lot of this stuff done. And every day we do this, it's like everything grows exponentially.
This is a unending and enormous undertaking that we're doing here, and we need your support for it. And I think all of North America needs your support for it. If you're unable to assist us, help us out at freedomreporters.com. Please like and subscribe and select the bell for notifications as well. And that also is a really big help. We really appreciate all the support and all the views that this channel has garnered over the past month since we brought this project out. And I can't wait for the future, because it's going to be full of challenges, and some of it might even be scary, because the government doesn't want us talking about this stuff, and the government doesn't want you to listen to it. But that's how we know we're on the right path going forward. Somebody said in the comments here, we've been schwabbed, in reference to Klaus Schwab. And that's just it. We have been schwabbed, and we need to fix it.
We're not the only ones fighting on the the information front. Andrew Torba, the head of GAB, also issued a statement today saying the entire nation state of Russia is getting deplatformed, and he's quite right. RT, Russia Today television, no longer available on Canadian cable systems. It's being blocked in Canada and other countries. Google is blocking all Russian apps. Apple is blocking all Russian apps. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Telegram have banned or limited access to Russian accounts. Twitter has started fact-checking and reducing the reach of Russian links. YouTube has demonetized Russian videos. Reddit has quarantined the Russian community. And Namecheap, a domain register, has cut off all Russian customers. So if you are Russian and you bought a domain you're out of luck. Namecheap has just cut off all the people in Russia.
In addition to that, I'm not sure if you've heard of this one, Rick, but the International Cat Federation has banned Russian-bred cats from its cat shows.
Okay.
What? What? For real?
Well,
Like-
it started with the removal of Russian vodka from Ontario LCBO stores, right? So look at the effect that's had.
And I wonder what type of impact this has, because I'm sure there's Russian immigrants who live in Canada and they live in the United States of all kinds. Like, this is not good for them. In fact, I'm going to go right out on a limb here and just call all of this stuff xenophobic. That's exactly what this is. They're afraid of Russian anything. And they're afraid of Russian immigrants. And they're afraid of the Russian people. It's absolutely ridiculous.
The Russian people are being made to pay a price for something that they're not directly responsible for, right? And as Andrew Torba points out, other nation states, he says, should be paying attention to this. He says, are you going to continue to allow your citizens to be controlled entirely by a handful of companies in Silicon Valley, or is now perhaps the time to start building your own sovereign technology and infrastructure? And look at what big tech did to Donald Trump, completely deplatformed him. Here's the thing. It's like, I'd like to think that the Canadian government, the United States government, that they're on the right side of history with regard to everything going on in Ukraine. But I'm not so sure they are. I'm not saying Vladimir Putin is right either. But all I'm seeing right now is a lot of bad behavior, bad decisions, bad foreign policy, and bad guys all the way around. And I see an unwillingness on the Western side, the NATO side, the Canadian side, the U.S. side, an unwillingness to listen. And it's very disturbing and dangerous.
It is dangerous. This is whenever we see the narrative or politicians making a us against them narrative, it is very dangerous. This is the type of stuff that threw Japanese citizens who had lived in North America for generations by that point into internment camps in World War II. They did the same thing with the Italians. And they did the same thing with Irish discrimination as well at some points. Like, this is where it all starts. This is where it all starts. This type of behavior right here. And you know what? None of this is going to fix it. It's all going to make it worse.
Well, Andrew Torba says that yesterday Gab engineers were also found a massive anti-Russian botnet on their servers. And they banned these bots. They got rid of them. He said there were hundreds of them that had created new accounts sharing about a dozen IP addresses, and they were reposting, commenting, liking anti-Russian fake news, and trying to promote all of that stuff. It's all part of this propaganda, war that we're seeing happen, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the pro-war left-wing political structure in the West doing that stuff. In this case, that's not the Russians. It's the opposite. It's the other side of the equation, right? So they've gone after him. I don't know. After seeing the way big tech has been behaving over the last, certainly since the pandemic and even before, right? Like,
yeah, I would say it was whenever they decided. Well, their advertisers got them in trouble sometime around 2011 or something, after there was terrorist associated propaganda from like ISIS or Al Qaeda or something, and then after the or during or before the video played, it would have like Coca-Cola advertising on it, and after that, everything just went way downhill. Many people.
Sorry, I'm not following you. Who got in trouble for what?
YouTube got in big trouble
YouTube?
because
okay.
there was Al Qaeda videos and that sort of training videos on YouTube, and then you'd be watching those videos, and supposedly you get like an ad for Coca-Cola, and then all the advertisers got really pissed off at YouTube, and a bunch of them pulled the ads, and then since that point, YouTube has basically been pro-censorship and has been stomping people down and shutting people down. That was in like 2012, 2011.
Right now, the thing that is of most concern to me is I see all this cheerleading, I see propaganda, I see pro-war crap, I see both sides engaging in this propaganda war, and it's very difficult for people to really know what truth is when you're in an environment like this. It's difficult, if not impossible, to know what is really going on. And, you know, today, what did we see? We saw Lindsay Graham call for the assassination of Vladimir Putin. And that has set off a firestorm of controversy. You know, a lot of media outlets now touching on that. And well, let's just watch this one reaction, this media reaction to what Lindsey Graham had to say, because it's not only irresponsible. I think that it could be argued this is an international crime. What he has done, Senator Lindsey Graham.
Putin's never going to sue for peace. How does this end? Eventually, the Russian people are going to have to decide to get rid of this guy. Putin's never going to sue for peace. How does this end? Eventually, the Russian people are going to have to decide to get rid of this guy. As long as he's your leader, you're going nowhere. The world has turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to war crimes and murder and thievery for the past 20 years. The Ukrainian people have broken that cycle.
That's very irresponsible.
You know why it's so dangerous, Brendan? It's because this brings us in another step closer to nuclear conflict. And Lindsey Graham made another irresponsible statement a few days ago where he said that he thinks that Putin is ready to launch a nuclear weapon to level a Ukrainian city in order to demoralize the Ukrainian people. He doesn't know that. He's just making that up. How would he know? How could he know? There's no way he knows. And I'd say that's highly, highly unlikely, especially given the way that we've seen this conflict actually unfold. But here's the real danger. And this is why I'm petrified. And this is why these politicians are so dangerous. And the United States, NATO outgun Russia enormously when it comes to conventional weapons. Russia just doesn't have the same numbers that NATO does. However, people need to be aware that the Russian military possesses weapons that are more sophisticated. People in the United States don't want to hear this, but it's true. The weapons that the Russians have are more sophisticated. They have hypersonic missiles that the United States does not have. They also have defense systems that can shoot down intercontinental ballistic missiles that are far superior to what the United States has. If this war continues to escalate, Putin has already threatened to use nuclear weapons, using language that is thinly veiled. The West would be wise, NATO, the United States, Canada would be wise to take that very seriously. The reason being, if it escalates to a point where Putin feels threatened, and he knows that it's going, if he's facing an all-out war with NATO, it's a war that he knows that he probably can't win conventionally. And I can pretty much guarantee he is determined to preserve Russia's sovereignty. He will do whatever he needs to do to keep his country intact. And when he says that he's prepared to respond in a way that the world has never seen before, I think you can take that to the bank. The reason being, Russia, with their defense systems, could shoot down a large majority of the missiles coming from the United States. Some would get through. And some of the ones from the West would get through. But the United States does not have the same kinds of defense systems, and Russia's ICBMs are also more powerful, and they are prepared, and they have them. Trust me, they have, right now, Russia's got a lock on key U.S. strategic targets. Not if weapons are put into position in Ukraine or in close proximity to the Russian border, And if there's any kind of an attack on Russia and Putin decides to respond, he will not likely respond directly to the origins of the missiles that are launched at him from maybe even Ukraine or someplace along a Russian border. The real danger is he will target strategic locations in the United States. The source, the real source of those attacks.
He's not going to mess around.
Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, New York, major industrial centers like Detroit, take out manufacturing capacity, and any other strategic targets that they choose to make a priority.
Yeah,
That's the danger. And if that happens, if they strike and the United States responds in kind, when it comes to a nuclear conflict, Russia has the upper hand. And I don't think the United States can do anything about it.
No, I don't think so. Well, I don't think they could do enough.
Enough
about it.
This is a disaster, folks. And all this saber rattling, war mongering, these kinds of statements that we heard from Senator Graham, completely irresponsible. These sanctions, these toothless sanctions and words of this tough talk from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, talk that he really hasn't got any way to back up. Again, very, very dangerous. We need to find a way. You know what Canada, in my view, should be doing? Should be, and the United States, should be trying to find a way to get the two sides to a table to talk and to find a resolution to this. But the real problem that the media is not talking about is that it's NATO, it's the West with this we don't have to listen to Russia attitude that they are maintaining even now. They've been taking that stance for decades. They don't want to listen. And that is at the core of the problem, because Putin feels threatened by NATO.
Well, that's the thing, right? So NATO's sole purpose when it was created was to fight the Russians and have
During
the Cold War.
Right.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's what its sole purpose technically is. I mean, you could even still say it technically is its sole purpose is to fight Russians, even to this day.
Well, it was set up to fight the former Soviet Union, which Ukraine used to be part of.
Yeah.
But as we pointed out last night, the real problem here is that Ukraine has become westernized. Zelensky is basically a Western U.S. puppet installed as president in a country that they say is a democracy, but really isn't. And Ukraine wants to become a NATO member. Putin's just not prepared to let NATO park troops and weapons on his front doorstep because he sees it as a threat to his nation's sovereignty, an existential threat to his country. And then you have these kinds of statements from Lindsay Graham,
which are very irresponsible. I don't care what your feelings are on this. To act in an official capacity and talk that way is just beyond abhorrent. Like, that would be like, just imagine if a United States senator said somebody should take care of Justin Trudeau. Like, that is way beyond their capacity to even act in. Out of his scope of practice entirely. And while we were watching that, I had this deep, dark thought. You have the midterm elections happening in the United States soon, and God knows what they're going to use this whole scenario as a tool for in those elections. The media has everybody gung-ho for war, ready for war, all set to go. And all it would take is a political party to inflame that even further and take it further and use it to win an election.
Well, again, what the public is not being told to is that the people in Canada, in the United States, all that you're hearing from the Western media, including the Western media in Europe, is Putin is a bad man. He's crazy. He's just out trying to grab land and expand his empire. And Ukraine is a democracy and a sovereign country, and the invasion is illegal, and we just have to push Putin back, and we have to win this war. Well, it just is not that simple. There's a lot of history there. As I say, when the Berlin Wall came down, NATO, the West, the United States promised that NATO would not expand any further east, not 1 inch further east, they said. But then they went and they did. Years later, they took in Poland, they took in Hungary, a number of new countries under the NATO umbrella. Vladimir Putin asked if Russia could join NATO, and they said no. He asked if Russia could join the European Union. They said no. They didn't want anything to do with him. They just basically haven't taken Russia seriously. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, they basically treated Russia like a second-rate country. It's just the approach from a foreign policy perspective that the West decided to take after a certain point. And now we've gotten to this point where NATO has continued to sort of expand over, and now they're right on Putin's front doorstep with Ukraine, which is a strategically placed country that has changed hands many times over the years. And there's another issue, and you're looking at live footage, by the way, from Ukraine in those video feeds tonight. But there are two sections in Ukraine that have declared independence from Ukraine. The Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic are disputed territories in the Donbass. And they both declared, both of those areas declared independence. They were breakaway independent states. And since that's happened over the last 8 years, Ukraine has been bombing those areas, shelling them. And over the past 8 years, about 14,000 people have been killed. 14,000 people. So a lot of people have been dying. And the leaders in those two areas went to Putin and said, and asked for his protection. And he said that he would give it to them. And he said that he would recognize their independence, that he wouldn't occupy them, but he would protect them from Ukraine. And so he sent in peacekeepers, as he calls them, to protect those sections from the Ukrainian shelling. And the Ukrainians basically ignored it and have continued to take aggressive action toward those two sections in the Donbass. This is a part of the whole dynamic in there that the media here does not talk about. And that's one of the reasons it's more complicated than simply Putin is a bad man and a crazy guy like Hitler. So these things have to be taken into consideration. And as I say, and it's so dangerous that this could go nuclear much faster than anyone, I think, realizes. Well, I think some people realize it. And we could all pay a very, very, very high price.
And the people of Ukraine already are.
Yes. That's exactly right.
Big time.
And I feel so certain that if the West would stop meddling, as we have in many countries, Yemen, Somalia, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq,
Iran,
metal, Iran, just
Cuba.
Stay out of other people's business. Mind your own business at home. I'm just saying, if they would talk, if they would listen to what Putin is really saying, and then engage in dialogue. But we've seen this attitude from these, I would say it's a fascistic political approach. Don't listen to your enemies. Don't listen to your adversaries. Shut them down, shut them up, deplatform them, pay no attention, push ahead, take what you will, take what you want, twist the truth, engage in propaganda. No negotiation. Freedom truckers, throw them all in the can. Fine them. Confiscate their property. Demonstrators, give them all tickets. No rights for these people. Take away their charter rights. It's pretty consistent right across the board. Deplatform them. If you mention this on YouTube, you're banned. If you don't toe the party line on this, you're off Facebook. You're in Facebook jail for this. You're in Facebook jail for that. It's gotten to the point where I'm kind of like, whoever's getting deplatformed and censored, maybe those are the guys that we need to be listening more to.
Well, it's like I say, that's how you know you're going in the right direction, the more people you kind of piss off.
So let's see what some of these viewers have to say. Mary Cork says, yes, he just never knew because he wasn't in the public eye. I'm not sure who she's talking about. Kind of coming into probably a conversation in the middle there. Yeah, well, that's our headline tonight. Warmongers and freedom fighters. I would say the warmongers are people like Lindsay Graham, people on the left, the far left, the extremists, right, who are like advocating for war, advocating for a freaking no-fly zone. Are you in, if you're doing that, if you are advocating for a no-fly zone, you are advocating for a full-out shooting war, kinetic war with Russia, between Russia and the West and NATO and the United States. And that will go nuclear faster than you can bat an eye.
Absolutely. That is the definition of an act of war, like right there. If the United States were to intervene and start shooting Russian planes out of the sky.
Anybody calling for a no-fly zone over Ukraine and asking for the West, for the United States, basically, right? Asking for jets from NATO countries to enforce that, you are freaking insane. You are advocating for war. You are a warmonger. A no-fly zone over Ukraine could be a death sentence for us all. This needs to de-escalate, not escalate. The objective here should not be to win the war in Ukraine. The objective should be a quick way to find a peaceful resolution through compromise of some kind, through dialogue. We need to get these guys to a table and find a solution through dialogue. Escalating it militarily is grossly irresponsible.
And this is another form of mass formation psychosis, I'm guessing, at this point. So somebody sent me this article, and it's a Quebec restaurant takes word Putin off menu to denounce Vladimir Putin.
Kirk Calderon says, what's the solution, guys? Last night, I gave you what I thought my solution would be, which is that Ukraine has to remain an independent, neutral country to act as a buffer between the West and NATO countries and Russia. That is the solution. I think everyone could go home happy with that. I think Vladimir Putin would be satisfied if there was a guarantee that a government was installed there that was not just a puppet government of the West, but an actual government chosen by the people democratically, with guarantee that there would be no weapons installed there, and that Ukraine would not become a NATO member. It's vital that Ukraine not become a NATO member to Russia, because they have an agreement among NATO countries. If Russia were to attack any NATO member country, that's considered an attack on all of the NATO countries, and all of the NATO countries are then obligated to respond militarily. That's why he doesn't want Ukraine to become a NATO country, because all it would take would be for Ukraine to launch a missile, and then if Russia defends itself, suddenly he has a war involving every NATO country on his hands. It becomes an instant thing. They're obligated to respond. Now, the United States, United Kingdom, all these NATO countries, they go into, they're instantly involved in a kinetic war with Russia. That fast. I understand. I can see the point. I can understand the concern. And it's not really much different than, it's actually worse than the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 1960s, where Russia, the Soviet Union, was parking nuclear missiles in Cuba, giving them first strike capability against the United States. But even there was compromise reached, because Kennedy at the time made a secret deal with the Soviet Union, where he agreed to take missiles that they had installed in Turkey out. But in order to save political face, he insisted that part of the deal remain a secret, and said that if any of that information was leaked, that he would deny it. So the public at the time was not even aware. It just looked like Kennedy got a big win. And by threatening to sink ships that were taking the materials and resources necessary to finish the installation of the missile installations in Cuba, ships were taking all of those supplies in, and Kennedy threatened to sink those. But by going toe-to-toe with the Russians on that front at that time, it looked like Kennedy had a big win in the media. That was part of the propaganda at the time, though, right? Well, that's how you kind of get things done, though. That was solved through dialogue, compromise. I'll take mine out of Turkey, you take yours out of Cuba. Problem solved.
Wabam.
And even then, there was an information war going on, a propaganda war. Kennedy was concerned about optics, so it had his missiles coming out of Turkey had to be a secret. That's the way it went down. We need some sort of dialogue happening here. And
as our guest told us last night when they were sitting at the table, the security, this, what the heck's it called? The Security Council with the UN, when they were sitting at the table with Russia, they all got up and walked away from Russia. That's not the behavior that's going to lead to any type of diplomacy. It begs the question, do the Western leaders want a war? Because they are failing so bad at diplomacy, and a lot of these people have gone to university for diplomacy.
yes.
And that's a bloody shame. So it does beg the question, do they want this? Because it seems like that's the road we're going on.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's productive for Canada to be sending weapons, lethal weapons. I think we're sending about $500 million in aid to Ukraine, money that will be used for weapons. And as we pointed out last night, some of those weapons, a great number of them actually, have fallen into the hands of criminals and organized crime. And then those criminals are now out on the streets of Ukraine causing more chaos. They've been shooting at each other, gang fights. Innocent civilians have been killed on the streets of Ukraine. And that's because of aid coming from Canada, a country that is run by a government that it has been very focused on gun control here.
Yeah.
But they're eager to arm civilians over there. And again, I'll say it again. I think it's irresponsible because you're asking civilians to run out into the streets and fight fully trained soldiers, fully armed, soldiers who know how to use those weapons. And you're expecting civilians to stand up against them, men and women who, a salesman one day and a chef from a diner, right? And a I don't know, a soccer mom and a
it's like that scene from 300 where they go, Acadian, what is your profession? And he says, I'm a potter, and you, I'm a sculptor, and you, I'm a cook. And he goes, Sparta, what is your profession? And it's like, oh, woo, that's the Russians. They are fully locked and loaded and ready to go. They're not messing around.
Robert Starr says Putin has asked for that solution for the last 8 years and was turned down. That's quite right. That's exactly the point that I'm trying to make. And I appreciate the comment, Robert. That's exactly right. Again, I'm not trying to be an apologist for Vladimir Putin. I don't think war is a good thing. I'm not supporting any war. I don't want to see any aggression from any side, but I do want to see people talk and work things out.
I don't know about you, Rick, but for me personally, I was against the Iraq war, and I was against going into Afghanistan. I didn't think. I don't like war. I don't think this is productive. This is not going to do anything good for anybody, except make rich people richer. That's all it's going to do.
Exactly, and that's something that I think Canadians and U.S. citizens need to remember again and consider. There are some people making a whole lot of money off this. A lot of money. A whole lot of money.
Tons and tons. Every time Justin Trudeau sends supplies, people are making a bunch of money. It's like Rick Walker says, fat cats feeding from the government trough. And that's really what it is.
Yeah, I believe that. I absolutely believe that. Here's Vladimir Putin in an address earlier.
Here, that's his role. I have to check on something in very short.
Не нагнетать ситуацию, не вводить никаких ограничений. Мы все свои обязательства выполняем и будем выполнять дальше. Не видим здесь никакой необходимости ситуацию нагнетать или ухудшать наши отношения. И все наши действия, если они возникают исключительно всегда в ответ на какие-то недружественные действия в отношении Российской Федерации. Я думаю, что все должны задуматься о том, чтобы нормализовать отношения и нормально сотрудничать, нормально развивать отношения.
So there's Vladimir Putin essentially calling for talks. I'm not sure that we're hearing things like that in the mainstream media over here. I think that just has to be, that's the only way to a solution, period. No matter what, it has to come down to discussion, right? It has to come down to discussion. I'm just checking feeds here, see if we can get a live feed out of the People's Convoy. But for the moment, let's bring back up the live feed from the People's Convoy, or sorry, the from Kiev. Here's a multi-camera view tonight. And thank God we're not seeing explosions. Things seem relatively calm on the streets of Kiev tonight. And we continue to pray for the people there, and for Russians too, and for everyone involved. Blue Flame Integration says Lindsay Graham is a rhino, like Mitch and Mitt. Yes, Lindsey Graham is not consistent on a lot of things. And in this case, I would say he's become a hawk, a kind of a warmonger, and I think his rhetoric has been irresponsible. Matthew Samard says, Maverick Multimedia, those conflicts were already there. That's fitna, just that industry brought them brand new toys to fight with. Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Ninth Citizen says, nice, interesting. I haven't checked in with you guys since Ukraine crisis. Nice to know you see the parallel. NATO's missiles are sitting on the Russian borders. Yes. And if you go back, even back to like 2016, and the conflict that was at that time in Syria, NATO was moving and the United States was pushing weapon systems right up against the Russian border at that time. And I said back then that it looked to me like NATO and the US was pushing for some sort of war with Russia. The propaganda was just pouring out of Syria. And on both sides. And it looked like there was a conflict heading there, but then Donald Trump was elected, and I think their plans were kind of derailed, and that was something that they just did not expect. Roy Patterson says, if we get in a nuclear war with Russia, we all die. A lot of people will die for sure. And yeah, if that happens, thousands of nuclear warheads being detonated in the United States and in some places I would expect in Canada as well. It never going to be the same again after that. And mass death, not just from the impact, but from the radioactive fallout afterward. The bombs today are up to 1,000 times more powerful than the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan in World War II by the United States. And we've all seen the images from those explosions. They just leveled those cities. Now imagine that times 1,000. We need to do whatever it takes to avoid that. I don't care what it takes. We cannot let that happen. People sit and talk about climate change and the environment. That would be devastating to the environment and to human life. American Mother says, we are not being told the truth because of Russia wanted to take Ukraine. All they would have to do is take down the energy, the communications, etc., but they are not. And I agree with you, American Mother. Absolutely. That's exactly what I've been saying from the beginning, and others as well, including, I'm sure you as well. You've seen this. The Russians have not gone in there, and they have not waged a conventional kind of war where you take out the communications, the power. That's not what they've been doing. They've not really been targeting things in that way. It's been, I think that what the Western media is missing here is this is a pushback from Russia, and their objective is to keep NATO out and keep the West out. And I think to unseat Zelensky as the leader of the country, because they know that he is basically a Western puppet. And they're also trying to denazify the country, which is what Putin has said. And that's because there are actual Nazi groups there that pose a threat to Russia. And Putin has also been trying to remove the Nazi threat from within Russia itself. And we're going to get into a discussion about all of that and what Nazi means in a future episode of this program. And there's a lot more to be said about it. And we'll just leave it at that for now. Highway Frog says they don't care. They have done the same bad things. Epstein. Yeah. I mean, this deep state, I think that this new fascistic world government, they've used people like Epstein to blackmail a lot of Western leaders to keep them in line. And we're going to get into, that's a part of the whole story about what's going on with Nazi groups in Ukraine, around the world, how it's actually affecting and how they're part of this whole globalist movement, which our governments are involved with. Tim Kidd, Brendan, war is what they need to cover up the jab shot and the collapse of the dollar. What do you think, Brendan? He's talking to you.
I don't know. That's a lot of speculation. I think that they want to collapse the country to some degree or another. And it's for that very reason why Canada doesn't put itself first on just about any level. It's why we import our energy and that sort of thing. Canada is not a strong country by any means at this point in time, and I don't think they want that at all. And that was very evident in the last election we had.
Yeah, I think that our governments are definitely using this as an opportunity to blame many of the problems that have been created by our governments on the conflict over there and on Russia. We're seeing massive inflation here. We saw Joe Biden refer to inflation in his State of the Union address 2 nights ago, where he said that the solution to inflation is not to, he says there's 2 ways to deal with it, to lower wages or to lower costs. Well, we choose to lower costs. It's nonsensical. None of that makes any sense. That's all a bunch of doublespeak for people who know nothing about economics, which is, the vast majority of people have not been trained in economic theory. Fair enough. But that makes it easy for someone like Joe Biden to kind of pull the wool over your eyes. Inflation has been caused by massive money printing. the more money the government prints, the less valuable it becomes. It's simple supply and demand. The money supply increases, the value of each dollar decreases because there's more of it out there. More dollars chasing the same number of goods forces a rise in prices because the money is worth less. Couple that with a decrease in production because they shut down so many businesses and crippled the economy for more than 2 years. Now you have more money chasing fewer goods. Shut down oil production, dial it back domestically, go from energy independence and a major energy exporter of oil and natural gas to a country that again becomes a net importer because you're not producing as much, and the same effect. Oil prices, gasoline prices go up. Now you have an even worse situation because there's more demand than ever for oil and gas because a war is being fought. And supply chains are disrupted even more so. And production of fuel has been hindered. And it's throwing all kinds of monkey wrenches into these things. And it also gives oil companies and governments an excuse to jack up gasoline prices even more. Here in my hometown tonight, it's $1.72 or $1.73 per liter now, up from just a week ago where I think it was $1.29. Now it's $1.73, and we're on our way to $2 a liter. In California, I believe they're paying somewhere around $8 US per gallon for fuel in some places. $8 a gallon. Well, that's not all because of the war in Ukraine. A lot of that is because of inflation caused by massive money printing. And that is being done because the governments in the West have embraced this whole idea of what they call modern monetary theory. It sounds very sophisticated, and they'll throw a lot of gobbledygook at you, but really all that is, that's just a decision that has been made that they think they can just print as much money as they want with no real consequence. They believe that the problem with what plunges you into an economic tailspin or a recession or depression is when you pull back. You print a bunch of money, but then as that goes on, if you pull back, then that will cause the dip. And they think that the solution is when things start to taper off, just keep printing even more. Well, everything I ever learned about economics suggests otherwise. At some point, the currency collapses, and then you've got an even bigger problem. And that's, I think, where the United States is actually just about at with the US dollar now. And if all of this stuff in Ukraine escalates even further, and the United States and the West keep trying to combat this and fight this conflict with financial tools, economic tools, sanctions, playing games with the dollar and the currencies. And believe me, they're propping up the Ukrainian currency. They're propping it up artificially right now while they're trying to attack the Russian ruble. They keep playing these games. I don't know that it's the U.S. taxpayers, the Canadian taxpayers in the West. We're all going to pay for that. We're all going to pay for that. And I don't know that we can ill afford it. We can ill afford it.
It's been sitting at 42 cents per Canadian dollar. So every Ukrainian, we'll just call it every Ukrainian dollar is worth 42 Canadian. 42 Canadian.
I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah, I don't know, the lost cause. So every Ukrainian dollar is worth 42 Canadian cents, and it's been at that for all this past week. And yeah, what else could be the reason other than Western nations propping them up? And I think all this sanction stuff that they're hitting Russia with, they already anticipated this. They've had sanctions before, many a time.
You mean the Russians have anticipated this? You mean?
Yeah, the Russians have anticipated the sanctions from the West. They've been hit with sanctions before. I don't think they really care. They do hold like billions in gold. They have over 2,000 tons of gold, which is a bit smarter than the United States. They're just gonna trade with all of the enemies of the West. They're gonna trade with Iran, China. They're gonna be fine through all this. It's not even gonna be a sweat off their nose.
Well, yeah, I mean the U.S. dollar was taken off the gold standard by Nixon when he was president, and this is the other thing people don't know. The U.S. dollar is really propped up by oil. It's no longer tied to the value of gold. It's not backed up by gold. It used to be that there was enough gold to support at Fort Knox to support the amount of currency that had been printed and was in circulation, right? Enough to support it. Well, there is no gold anymore. They got rid of it. They sold it all off. Now it's just a straight up fiat currency. It's basically just fake. The only thing that really supports the US dollar is that it's accepted worldwide. It's recognized as the world's international currency. And it's been tied to the price of oil because the United States made deals where certain countries have had to buy, like when Saudi Arabia sells its oil, it only accepts US dollars for it. So that creates a support mechanism for the US dollar. It ensures that there is demand for it and a base, a foundation for the US dollar, oil. And so the price of oil then becomes tied to the US dollar. So the US dollar is largely supported on the oil commodities market, right? Oil is a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
So it can go up and down and the value of it. But really, there's no gold. Russia would love to get off the US dollar. They'd love to undermine it so that it's no longer the world's default currency. And China, Russia, other countries, they hold a lot of gold.
Yeah,
Because even though the US dollar isn't on the gold standard anymore, gold is still recognized worldwide, as it always has been, as currency. So,
and the more reliant we are on technology, which does require gold and everything, like there'll always be value for it. It's not going away.
yes. And these other countries know that.
So yeah, we're not hurting anybody with we're not hurting anybody but Russian people with these sanctions, and that will taper off eventually once they start trading more with their own allies and their own club.
Like I don't know, Brendan, like some of these and like these other sanctions, like we mentioned last night, the decision to take Russia out of the SWIFT payment system internationally so that they can't, basically they've deplatformed the Russian banks is what they've done. But the decision to do that inflicts a lot of pain back home in Canada and the United States, because now Russia has no way to pay its debts to the banks that it owes money to in Canada and the US, and that's billions of dollars. So they're suffering on this side as well. It's kind of like, yeah, you shot him in the left foot, but you shot yourself in the right. So some of these measures, I don't know, some of this stuff just doesn't, it's not going to be as effective as they think. And a lot of it is just posturing. It's for optics.
It is all optics. That's all virtue signaling is, and that is all they know how to do. Virtue signal, I am virtuous because I put the Ukraine flag on my Facebook profile picture. I am virtuous because I dumped my Russian vodka down the sink. I am virtuous because I banned cats from participating in cat shows. Look how good I am. Boo hoo woo hoo hoo. It's the most annoying thing ever, to be honest, because most of these people, and we've all talked to them, where they don't have a clue of what Ukraine is or what Russia is. And you pointed this out before, that they wouldn't even know how to find it on a map. And here they are, taking poutine off the menu because it somehow sounds a little bit like Vladimir Putin. I think we have real potential here to virtue signal ourselves to death, and maybe Russia doesn't even need to send nukes.
Also, I know that some of our live streams, the reason we're having trouble getting them from the People's Convoy tonight is because Facebook has decided to deplatform some of the live streamers that we've been using. And they've decided that they don't want live streams, or some of them, or maybe all of them, but they've taken a lot of the live streams for the People's Convoy down. Now, they are scheduled to arrive in Washington, D.C. tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Yeah, can you, Brendan, maybe go to the website for them and just check their schedule, and let's just see if they have any updates that we're not able to get right now, because I'm trying to find these feeds, but of course, the big tech companies are making it difficult for us to reach out and make contact with some of our live streamers tonight. So censorship is ramping up, not only out of Ukraine, but in Canada and the US as well. And it will, I don't know what we're going to see tomorrow when these trucks roll into Washington, D.C. We know that they have National Guard troops there. Boy, I hope we don't see a replay of what we saw on January 6th. I hope it's just more on an even keel and peaceful. And I hope people don't get arrested. And I hope it's a positive thing. But it just, after seeing what we saw in Ottawa and seeing the censorship happening, boy, I don't know, Brendan. What are your thoughts?
I'm definitely more concerned with the United States and government agitators or political think tank agitators. We also know that Antifa in the United States is a way bigger problem than it ever was in Canada. So there's a lot of potential and a lot of room here for something to go wrong. And we need to really hope that they take their inspiration from Canada and follow that. Keep it lighthearted. Keep it peaceful. And keep the joy in it too, right? Because there was a lot of joy in Ottawa when all that had happened.
Yep.
And I think that is some of the best parts of why it was successful for people. That although the media and although the government tried to stop it or defame it, it's the people who have gone there all know, and they've all told everybody they know. And we showed you on this broadcast here for 3-week period exactly what was going on. And that's why it was successful to some degrees. And I mean, how successful was it? I think we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to determine and find out. But I do wish them well. I think it has potential to go good, but it's the concern from the agitators I'm worried about. Whether they be FBI, Antifa, or God knows what. I think the Washington, D.C., the Capitol building, will probably be totally fenced off again. Joe Biden likes building walls everywhere except for the southern border. And I think the National Guard will have a heavy presence there. But
Yeah, well, we know that for sure.
They are, what's the word for it? They're in for an interesting experience, and I think people are underestimating this convoy just like they underestimated the first one. Things are playing out just like the other one had.
Yeah, well, we've seen we've definitely seen thousands and maybe millions of people standing on the highways, on overpasses, greeting those truckers as they've been, driving toward Washington, D.C. from various locations across the U.S., right? Just like it happened in Canada. Now, there was a live feed. This is not live, but I'm going to share this footage with you out of Ottawa. And we know that we have a number of demonstrations planned for tomorrow that we're hearing about in Ottawa, other cities as well, in support of the People's Convoy heading to Washington, D.C. And of course, this is right in front of the Parliament buildings. This is where this was just a couple of hours ago out of Ottawa. And this is where the main demonstration was held during the Freedom Convoy. And you can see that the whole street is cleared. Hardly anybody walking there right now. But there are people, a lot of people apparently heading to Ottawa for tomorrow, the 5th. And there was talk of a so-called Million Man March. I don't know really what that means, whether they were trying to get 1 million people to Ottawa or whether they were talking about 1 million people in total at demonstrations across Canada. There's another effort underway to have people join arms or something and create a freedom chain.
Yes, I have seen that. They want to create a freedom chain all across the Highway 17 of Canada, which stretches from East Canada to West Canada the whole way. I don't know how that's going to go. Should be interesting, though. Should be interesting. Yeah. I've seen some.
I'm not seeing the momentum that we saw when that big Freedom Convoy took hold in Canada. I've never seen anything like that. I don't think anyone has before. No. It was incredible. And you can see there are some people actually gathered up there right now on the right-hand side of your screen, a small group of demonstrators. But so far, every effort to kind of rekindle things in a peaceful way, that's what we've been seeing, peaceful efforts and lawful efforts to have demonstrations. There have been successful demonstrations, but nothing like on the scale that we saw for the better part of a month with it really was like a festive atmosphere. And Brendan, the thing that something happened to me today, I was out, I had to run an errand. I had to go to the post office. And as I was walking in, there was a man standing out in front. And he said, "Hey, you're Rick Walker." And I said, "Yeah." And so I've been watching your podcasts. And I said, "Oh." And we had a short conversation. And he said he went up to Ottawa and during the demonstrations. And he thanked me for doing what we're doing, Brendan, because he said that everything he saw coming from the legacy media, CBC, CTV, Global, the usual suspects, everything he saw coming from them was completely inaccurate. And he was grateful for what we were doing. And I really appreciated what he said. I didn't have a lot of time to talk to him, but it touched me. And it reinforces for me the knowledge that I get a sense now every day when people phone here, when I run into people on the street, when people email us, message us, I know that what we're doing is having a positive impact because it's facilitating discussion, opening dialogue, opening a pathway to information that people are not being exposed to in any other way, really. And I greatly appreciated what he had to say. I've had people, as I said, I think last night, I did mention that I've had truckers from the People's Convoy in the U.S. phoning me personally. Some of them, I don't even know how they're getting my phone number, but they're calling me up and I've had them crying on the phone because they're in such despair over what they see happening to our countries. The assault on freedom, the assault that has been launched on our rights, both in Canada and the United States. And it just shows me that this is truly, more than anything else, it's an information war. It really, truly is. And we are at war, and truth is the first casualty of war. And I think we are, to some degree, cutting through that.
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
And it's not just us. It's because of the live footage. It's the ability to show people footage just like this, which we're not editing. We're just rolling it randomly at a pickup point in this particular feed. And a lot of what we're bringing you is live. This is pre-recorded from a couple of hours ago. But you can see, like, this is just what's going on, okay? And that's the beauty of social media today and technology. Cell phone technology allows us to bring it to you just like this. And when we put people out in the field, when we can share it with you, this is truth. You can see exactly what's going on. I don't even have to comment to tell you what you're seeing with your own eyes. Although I have seen the legacy media contradict what people are being shown sometimes.
Yeah, they have contradicted a lot of things, and like it's no different. Like the first thing that comes to my mind, the Chrystia Freeland and the Nazi scarf.
So you can see people. Yeah, you can see people here. I'm sorry, I just want to mention you can see people gathering here already for what a prelude of things to come tomorrow. I expect there are going to be a lot more people here by tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon.
Yes, rolling in for the evening. But I was just saying, like, it's like with Chrystia Freeland and the Nazi scarf. And then the National Post, first thing they do is they put an article out and it says, this is because of KGB disinformation tactics. That's like, give me a break.
So again, if you can support us, support our journalism, you can go to freedomreporters.com, freedomreporters.com. There's also a hot link in the YouTube and Facebook descriptions, and you can support our work there. Tomorrow, I'll be back on, and I'll do my best to bring you some live feeds from Ottawa and from the People's Convoy. It'll be very interesting to kind of see what kind of numbers they get. I think the one in Washington, D.C. is going to be huge.
Yes.
And I'm again praying that everything remains peaceful and everyone is safe. That's the main thing. And then after that, we'll see what kind of impact it makes.
So I did double check the schedule. They departed Cambridge, Ohio this morning and set to arrive in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be arriving at Washington, D.C. at the Beltway area.
So hopefully we can pick up some speeches tomorrow and share some of that with you online. And is there an itinerary there? Do we know what the schedule is for tomorrow? Or have they posted that yet?
Well, let's see.
And that's what they're demanding, right? Is the end to the medical mandates. They say it's time to end the declaration of national emergency concerning the COVID-19 pandemic and restore our nation's constitution. So that's their position, the position of the People's Convoy.
No, I don't see any schedule, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But it does say the People's Convoy will abide by agreements with local authorities and terminate in the vicinity of the D.C. area, but will not be going into D.C. proper. Stay tuned for opportunities for elected officials and regular folks to go riding shotgun with an actual trucker for a day, as well as an opportunity to bid on one seat that will be sold on our operations vehicle for a similar ride-along opportunity. Details will be posted to the website soon. And that was their initial press release that they did February 21st, 2021. And let's see what it says on their Instagram.
You know, it's interesting. The cops went in, used a lot of force. They beat people with their batons. They fired rubber bullets, used tear gas. They brought in horses. A couple of people got trampled by police horses. They brought in their LRAD machine, their long-range acoustic device, which uses high-intensity sonic sound waves to repel protesters, disperse crowds. The use of that kind of technology is controversial because it can cause long-term hearing damage to eardrums, and even damage to people's brains if somebody takes a direct hit from one. It was mounted on the top of an armored vehicle, and yet here we are, and small groups of people outside Parliament Hill, outside the Parliament buildings tonight. No signs of trucks, mind you, but it's interesting to see that people are being allowed to sort of mill about down there. It looks much closer to normal.
Yeah, it does. I still can't get over how much outrage they had over the Terry Fox statue. And then when the cops went in there and started smashing people in the head, they had ended up tear gassing Terry Fox, to which nobody said anything, even though the mainstream media took a picture of it.
Yeah. Very interesting. So we'll have to see what kind of police presence there is tomorrow. And maybe would you mind bringing up that map of Ottawa, the street map that shows the roads that are blocked and checkpoints and so on? I'd be interested to see if they, if it's current and up to date right now. Let's see what the situation is going to be for people who are making their way into Ottawa, and whether they're going to have any trouble getting into the area with their vehicles tonight and tomorrow.
Roger. Got it pulled up now. Well, that's very interesting. Oh. Already had that shared. Okay. There it is. So, Wellington Street, the main street that is adjacent to Parliament Hill, all closed.
Yeah, which explains why you're not seeing traffic or even much in the way of pedestrians down there.
And this road is still all closed.
So they still have a lot of checkpoints set up from the looks of it.
Yes.
And I would think they'll have checkpoints set up tonight. They'll have certainly have them tomorrow. I don't think they'd be letting any transport trucks anywhere near the area. Is that whole road blocked off? Is that what that is?
Yeah, it says it's closed.
Very interesting. You know, that makes it difficult for people to get around.
Oh,
And-
look, it even has a note here. It says road closure closed until April 30th.
April 30th.
Which is like 2 months away.
Now, is that because of construction or is it because of this, or do we know?
Well, it's not typical in Canada to have construction during the winter time. So I'm going to assume because of the convoy. I wonder if there's still a bunch of trucks out on that road or something.
What highway is that? That's going into Gatineau.
Yeah, it's the Gatineau Parkway. Closed winters. Here, let me look into that for a moment, okay?
Yeah, because that's a long time for it to be shut right down.
And you spent a bunch of time in Ottawa, Rick Walker.
Yeah.
That's not typical for that road to be closed in the winter.
Well, I mean, I don't live there, so I don't know what's going on. If it's construction or what it is, I wouldn't really want to comment one way or the other without facts. So. I just don't know. But what is clear is they've got still have heavy traffic control and crowd control measures in place there, checkpoints, and I think they're just going to take extra measures to be sure that they don't allow anything to take root there in terms of a long-lasting demonstration. So we'll have to see.
Okay, so I guess the Gatineau Parkway is used for recreation until spring. So they close it? Like a snow machine trail, maybe? Or something?
I don't know. I don't usually go over to Gatineau, so I don't know. And when I'm there, I'm usually just in the downtown area.
Yeah, it's just what it says on their website, so that's what we'll have to go with. Interesting.
But the point is, we're looking at crowd control.
Mm-hmm.
There's the War Memorial.
So I'm not sure if you're aware, but they have had, what's it called? A committee regarding what's been going on with what had happened with everything with the truckers, and I did find a video which from that committee should be worthy of note to kind of give everybody like what the perspective in that committee is on the trucker convoy. So I'm just gonna pull that up.
Checking on a couple of other facts here for you. Sorry, folks. Just give me just a moment while I check this for you.
All right, I got it. If you want to let it roll.
Sorry, what do you have, Brendan?
I have the parliamentary committee, and they are talking in regards to what everything happened with the trucker convoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So we'll let it roll.
And thank you, Mr. Wells. You're a veteran, and we thank you for your service. You went on record saying that you know what sacrifice is on Fox News. Do you believe that calling for the overthrow of a democratically elected government or funding movements that speak to that is part of the freedoms that you fought for?
No, I don't believe that.
The convoy and protesters spoke to publicly the desire to commit violence against the government, to overthrow the government. Would your platform, having seen all of these things in the public domain, not have caught this as part of your prohibited activities and terms of use?
Well, in our course of research around the campaigns, that was not something that we were aware of. And obviously there's always fringe elements to any organization, and the media, I believe, in general, just tries to polarize the fringe things because it's great for media.
So this is Jacob Wells, and he is the CEO of Give, Send, Go. Just FYI.
But it doesn't necessarily constitute the general. Yeah.
You say that you believe that the media polarizes. Do you believe that it was polarization when the city of Ottawa was shut down and there were a variety of laws, statutes, regulations, and ordinances of the city of Ottawa, as well as federal ones, that were violated, which fall again counter to your terms of use? And that, by the way, would have only required you to turn on the television?
Well, you can say that. I don't necessarily agree with that. So do
you believe it was lawful protest what happened in Ottawa?
From what I've seen, I believe it was lawful up to the point where orders were enacted to make it unlawful. But
you believe that violating sound ordinances or traffic violations, blocking off entire streets outside the capital, is perfectly lawful or perfectly reasonable, even though it's considered unlawful?
With Cricket,
Sorry about that.
That's okay. You know what the problem here really is, Brendan? It's good old double standard. That's the problem.
Big time. And apparently this this engagement here gets pretty spicy, so.
Unlawful?
Well, I don't necessarily know that those things happened. And so
you don't know that those things happened. Did you turn on the television and see anything about this campaign, sir, when you became part of the media narrative? Even Fox News.
Well, I do need to make a distinction. The blockade over the bridges had nothing to do with the campaigns on Give, Send, Go. They weren't campaigns on Give, Send, Go for those blockades. What happened in Ottawa, from what I was getting reports of on the ground, was that truckers did move into the city, and that lanes of traffic were open and available for emergency vehicles and other vehicles to travel through, and that it was the police.
Were you aware that horns were blaring through the night in violation of a variety of ordinances?
I did hear reports of horns blaring, and that an injunction was made against that, and they stopped.
You knew that the law was being broken in a variety of different ways in Ottawa. And your platform says that Give, Send, Go is not a place for hatred, abuse, disrespect, profanity, meanness.
Can you stop it for a second?
Harassment or spam. And you knew that there were reports of people documenting.
You know what? So what? Okay? So what? Somebody's just got to say that. Who freaking cares? This guy cares because they're political opponents. So what? They honked their horns. Yeah, they honked their horns because nobody was listening to them. And they couldn't get the attention of the government any other way. So you know what my response is? Big deal. Suck it up. Okay? Suck it up. It's about time somebody stood up to you. And this pearl clutching, get out the smelling salts. Oh my God, they broke a city ordinance. Confiscate all their money. Freeze their bank accounts. They broke a traffic law. Suck it up, pal. That's what somebody needs to say to you and to all of you lying sons of you-know-whatses. Suck it up. It's about time somebody stood up to you. We're not afraid of you. It's about damn time. What have you done to the people of the country for over 2 years? You've abused them psychologically. Okay, they broke some traffic laws, maybe. Big deal. That's common. It's a common thing when you have massive demonstrations like that. Common. Sometimes municipalities look the other way. Sometimes it's just tolerated because in a democratic and free society, sometimes those kinds of laws are bent or maybe even violated because other rights are being exercised. When a union stages a strike and they block access to a factory, they're prohibiting access to private property. And technically, that too is a violation of this law or that law. So what? There's legal precedent for that being set because that's the price that we pay in a free and open and democratic society when people demonstrate, because that allows people to express themselves in a way that protects their freedom of speech. So what? You guys, you far left fascist freakazoids, you're the ones who are violating people's rights. That protest was lawful, as outlined by the judge who issued the ordinance to have the horn honking stop. It was acknowledged as a lawful protest. And that's why, even now, the charges that have been laid have only been counseling to commit mischief, which is in and of itself not really that serious an offense. These people are not criminals. So you know what, pal? Suck it up. It's not the first time the border's been blocked. It probably won't be the last. What these people are doing is they're taking the enforcement to a whole new level. They're so extreme, they declared war, literally, on the truckers and the Canadian people. They implemented the Emergencies Act, the War Measures Act.
And he voted for it.
Because why? They violated some city ordinance. They broke some traffic law. What are your thoughts, Brendan? Because I think that this guy he's ridiculous. Were you aware that somebody actually parked in an intersection? And therefore, we need to seize the $10 million that people donated. What an idiot.
I think this guy is a bloody fruitcake, for lack of a better term. And I just checked him out. This is the first time I've ever heard of this guy. I just pulled up his Twitter. He's quite fond of this interaction, if you want to bring up my screen share, that he's had with the CEO for Give, Send, Go. He posted this 4 hours ago, and nobody on Twitter cares. Because nobody cares about him. I don't even know how this guy ever got elected. Look at this. MP for Vancouver, Granville, and Chair, Pacific Caucus, ex-tech executive, volunteer, Ismaili Muslim, dog dad, building a better Canada and a kinder world. Does this man seem like he's kind? This interaction he's having? This guy, the CEO for Give, Send, Go, doesn't need to do this. What the hell are they going to do to him?
Threats of violence, all this shit. You know what? That's exactly what it is. It's just so much BS. They're fabricating this whole thing. They're trying to... This is what I was saying. We show you the raw footage here. We show you how peaceful it is. We prove it to you with raw, unedited, uncensored footage. And then these politicians sit up there and say that it's something completely different. This guy here, he's dangerous, okay? He's part of Canada's deep state. All these politicians.
And look at him here. He goes, "Today is Zero Discrimination Day. Let's celebrate the right of everyone to live with dignity and respect and reflect on the work of remaining to build a more inclusive society, as long as it only pertains to what I believe. And if I don't believe it, then that means it is the epitome of evil and must be sent to the depths of hell." What a shame. This guy is a disgrace. And this goes to show you how disgraceful the Liberal Party of Canada is. It is absolute garbage.
And the founder, that was the founder of Give, Send, Go, right?
Yes.
So he has a very valid point that he made there. He, as far as he knew, everything was lawful up to the point where the government decided it wasn't lawful anymore. And that is exactly the point, because they kind of get, in true fascist style, just like the Nazis they idolize, they have decided that this particular protest is illegal. This particular protest violates a whole bunch of laws. This particular protest warrants having any money that was donated to it seized. And anyone participating in it has to have their bank account frozen. Anybody participating in it needs to be hunted down and charged. The trucks have to be seized. Assets need to be seized. These are the kinds of tactics that you use in a war. The same kind of tactics that the Canadian government is using against Russia right now are the same tactics that they employed against the truckers. Exactly the same. Financial tools, economic tools, go after them, seize this, prevent them from getting their fuel. Don't let the fuel go into the truckers. We're going to stop buying fuel from Russia.
And you even see his little virtue signaling pin there. Let's bring the video up. Let's finish it. It's almost done. And then we can tear it apart.
On video of supporters of this convoy spewing hate, threatening violence, inciting people to rebel against the government and against the citizens of Ottawa. Would your platform not have reasonably shut that down?
Okay, I'll reiterate, Give, Send, Go does not condone violence of any form. We believe there's more power in the unity of peaceful protest. As in any polarized situation, we recognize there will be a few individuals and groups that might intentionally try to incite violence and hijack a movement.
So how many is okay? How many is okay then? How many bad apples is okay in a bunch?
No, I think that we already have processes in place with law enforcement to take care of bad actors that are actually committing acts of violence.
And how did you do that in this case? How did you do that in this case, where you saw that there were when there was hateful speech, when there were people that were speaking about overthrowing the government, inciting violence? Did you shut those funds down? Did you prevent them from accessing the funds?
Again, the Canadian government did not reach out to us.
I'm asking about your terms of use, sir. The terms of use on your side.
Mr. Chair, point of order. I think that the line of questioning, it's all very important that we're very passionate about this, but I do think it's getting a bit abusive. I would just ask the member to take a breath, ask his questions, but I think this is getting a little bit too much.
I agree.
It's
very
bordering
abusive.
on abusive at this point. So I just ask him to
Sure
take a breath.
is.
Thank you.
Take a chill breath now.
The breath has been taken. Now let me ask you again. Your site explicitly says that prohibited activities and campaigns, you may not use the Give, Send, Go service for activities that violate any law, statute, ordinance, or regulation, in particular related to items that encourage, promote, facilitate, or instruct others to engage in illegal activity, promote hate, violence, racial intolerance, or the financial exploitation of a crime. This is a pretty broad set of parameters, sir. Is this on the basis of statute that is created by law or the discretion of Give, Send, Go?
Well, there's discretion around campaigns as people previously have mentioned. This was an ongoing situation, a situation that was evolving quite rapidly. And so there is discretion within Give, Send, Go to understand and make determinations upon whether those things are actually happening in conjunction with local law enforcement or federal officials, of which none of them took the time to actually reach out to us and make us aware of those things.
Well, having now seen what you have seen, knowing what you now know, would you have allowed this type of funder to have taken place again? Or would you allow this to take place again?
10
Great
seconds.
question.
10
So-
seconds in your answer, please.
Yeah, it's something that we take on a case-by-case basis. We have to navigate each one of these individually. And the campaign itself was a distinct group of individuals. So
Thank you very much.
That video from True North, great news organization in Canada. We suggest that you support them as well because they do great work, and we appreciate everything they do over there. And
Absolutely. Candace Malcolm and Andrew Lawton, and they have several other notable figures as well. I do like their content quite a bit. I would say I probably like True North more than I like Rebel to some extent, but I think that's an opinionated sort of statement to make. But in either case, it's really a really great organization. Yeah, that MP there was totally out of line. Suck it up.
that's right. All the liberals, you know what? They need to just suck it up. Suck it up. Because you know what? The people have been putting up with that crap from the left for decades. And especially for the past 2 years. The way you've demonized people. People have been divided. The way that, so many of you on the left, you're ready to throw unvaccinated people into camps and have them, what? What are you going to do once they're in the camps? What kind of human beings are you? Ask yourself, what's really inside? What's in your heart? What are you feeling? Feeling just a little bit of hate? Just a little bit? And this guy with his lies, saying that the truckers were down there engaging in hate speech. We saw none of that. We saw what we showed you, people dancing in the streets, wrapping Canadian flags around themselves, expressing patriotism, pride in their country, hope for the future, hope that maybe these mandates might come to an end. That's what they were hoping for, a hope that maybe things could get back to closer to normal. That's what they wanted. That's what they were advocating for. The main organizers never once, as far as I ever heard, never once advocated or called for the overthrow of the government. That was another complete fabrication. Now, I don't know, maybe somebody someplace said something, but that never came from any of the key organizers that I ever heard from. And this Pat King that they had in custody, he was not one of the main organizers. So I don't even know what he said, but if he's in jail because of saying something like that, I don't even know. But he was not the one. He was not one of the people. He's a social media guy. He's got a following. So he was on social media all the time. But I know for a fact that guy was not one of the key planners. He wasn't involved in the fundraising. He had nothing to do with any of those aspects of it at all. So Tamara Litch, who's still in custody, yes, she was the main fundraiser. So they still have her in custody, but she's only charged with counseling to commit mischief. That's the charge. And they want to put her in jail for 10 years. If you commit murder, you might get sentenced to 20, you'd be out in 5. They want to put her in the slammer for a decade. Because you know what that is? That's about sending a message to political opponents. Don't even think about opposing us. Don't even think about it. If you do, we will crush you, destroy your life. That's the message from the government. That's the message. And they are telling you that they can do it. And yes, they can, because they've done an end run around the Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They can freeze your bank account. They'll take your truck. They'll take your car. They'll destroy your life. They'll take your job. They'll put you in jail for 10 years. All you have to do is say something Justin Trudeau doesn't like. So you know what? I guess I've got a target on my back too, and you too, Brendan. But I'm sorry. Not sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. What's there to be sorry for?
People standing up and fighting for the country, standing up and fighting for freedom. And if you're not standing up and fighting for freedom, you better ask yourself, what the hell are you fighting for? Are you fighting for anything? And if you are fighting for something and it's not freedom, I guess it's the opposite. It must not be freedom. So what is it? I don't know about you, but freedom seems like a pretty good idea to me, because that's what the whole country was founded on. And it worked pretty well for a century and a half. And we were a beacon of hope for the entire world. That's why everybody wants to come here, for freedom. So yeah, suck it up.
And you know what? This MP here, he's the one who should be sorry.
And again, please, if you can support our journalism, support what we're doing here, you can donate at freedomreporters.com. Or you can click the hot link in the Facebook or YouTube description and go straight to the donation page. We can't do this without you. We need your help. What are you doing to fight back? What are you doing to help? What are you doing to defend Canada and restore freedom? What are you doing? We're fighting the information war.
And just remember, every time you donate, a communist cries. freedomreporters.com. Be sure to also like and subscribe the video to our channel, and all of your support is really greatly appreciated. I really can't express that enough.
Guys, the country is in peril. I believe Canada has fallen. We're here trying to get it back. That's what we're doing. For 25 years plus, I worked at CTV, and I always felt like what I was doing there was in part fighting to preserve freedom of the media and freedom of speech. It was one of the main reasons I got into the media to begin with, and into the news business. I was a reporter there for over 25 years. And what I'm seeing going on today is journalism is dead. The country has been lost, and that is largely because we've lost freedom of speech. Instead, it's being replaced with bizarre hate speech laws, which are really designed to give the government more power to target political opponents. It has nothing to do with ending hate. In fact, it's just the opposite. All we've seen in it, we've lost it because we have a prime minister who spews hate and divides people into little groups, and demonizes people who oppose him. Goes to war with the working class, literally declares war on truckers and supporters of truckers who are fighting for freedom, refuses to meet with them, won't listen, never went down to talk to them, instead sends in goons to bust skulls, to break up a protest that was as much a festival and a carnival as anything else, and an outpouring of Canadian national pride. But they couldn't have that. No flag waving, no singing of the national anthem at Parliament Hill. Ask yourself why. Why? Because they don't love the country.
No, they don't. They
Those
despise
truckers
it.
do. Yeah. We need to get it back. We need this country back. And if there are any politicians out there, if any of you have half a spine, and if you can feel it in your heart, you got to stand up. This grandstanding, this fabrication, these lies that we've seen from that guy grilling the founder of Give, Send, Go,
who, I may add, didn't even need to be there. Like, what are they going to do? Extradite him to Canada to torture him at a parliamentary hearing?
This is just the beginning. They're coming for all of us. They're coming for all of us. And these even though the Emergencies Act has been revoked, It still remain, many aspects of it still remain in place. Those financial tools are still in place. Chrystia Freeland made sure that those financial tools used to seize bank accounts and go after crowdfunding platforms remain in place. They're treating the truckers like terrorists. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, and incredibly dangerous. Unbelievable.
But you know something, Rick Walker? I'm glad we did play that. I'm glad we had a chance to expose what these people look like and the things that they're doing.
Yeah.
I would go. Raquel Dancho is absolutely correct when she had stated that borderline abusive. It was beyond. It was abusive.
He was on a roll, you know.
Well, this guy can't control.
Did you know that they were parked 4 feet too far from the curb? You know, when you do that, did you know that they were doing that when you let them use your to donate on your thing? You know, not only that, but the guy had a broken taillight, and they have a broken tail. That's unsafe. And it's a violation of the MTO thing, and you can't do that. So how can you possibly let that happen? And then you let them keep on donating the money. How many truckers with broken taillights do you think you could do that? How many broken taillights before you decide that it's a hate speech crime?
Is that what you call leftist math?
Well, it's like the guy that I saw on CBC, you know, during the demonstration when he was trying to back up Trudeau. They brought in some university professor. I could find it. It's still online. The guy's sat there in an interview, online, of course, and they're running some footage. And there's a woman making a heart shape with her hand, right? And the people are dancing with the flags. And this is the video they're showing. Well, this guy's talking about how they're all spewing hate and engaging in violence. But the video they're showing shows people dancing and hugging and singing and making heart shapes with their hands as they lean out the windows of trucks. And I thought, these people are telling their viewers to not believe their own eyes. That's exactly what they were doing. And they're still doing it today. Don't believe what you see, just believe what we tell you. It was bizarre. It's just like the reporter, that famous video of the guy calling it a mostly peaceful protest. Well, the buildings are burning behind him because they've been set ablaze by arsonists engaged in a protest in the States it was a BLM thing. Right? That's the thing. That's the whole problem here. It's a double standard. Everybody knows it. Everybody. You all know it. The people on the left know it. The guy who was grilling that MP, he knows it. He knows he's full of it. Everybody in that meeting knows it. All the MPs know it. The Prime Minister knows it. You know it at home. You all know it. You all know it. It's all laid right out in front of you. It's just that we live in an era, as Randy Hillier said, we live in an era of dishonesty where truth has no value anymore. So they get to decide, if they're in power, what truth is. And you're not allowed to believe your own eyes. If it's black and they tell you it's white, black has to be white. It's very Orwellian. If they decide that 2 + 2 = 5, that's the science. They get to decide what the science is. They get to decide what truth is. They get to decide what the narrative is. They just get to make it up to suit themselves, to suit their political interests and their objectives. And even if they have to make stuff up about their political enemies and opponents in order to have them thrown in jail or to take their money, they'll just make it up. And that's what the founder of Give, Send, Go said right there. He said, well, we thought it was lawful up until the point where the government decided it wasn't lawful anymore because they just made up a new law. Yeah, we don't like what they're doing. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do, Pete? I don't know, John. Let's get Justin. Hey, Justin, what are we going to? Let's pass the Emergencies Act. Then we can do whatever we want. And then we'll retroactively make it a crime to have donated. If not an actual crime, we'll make it a social crime. And then we'll get some guy to hack Give, Send, Go and expose all the names. We'll get the information illegally, and then we'll give it to the cops, and then we'll give it to the government, and then we'll distribute it out to social media, and we'll just expose everybody's names and shame them because we just make up this narrative. What kind of a world are we living in, man? It's all upside down, up and inside out.
I wish I could tell you, Rick Walker. I really don't know. It's bloody atrocious what we've done, and we need to bring the truth back. I've said it already tonight, but I'm going to say it again. The truth may hurt somebody's feelings, but that's a price I'm willing to pay for it. Even my own feelings.
Yeah. Well, like I say, the bizarre thing is everybody knows.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Everybody.
Even the people I know who are left-wingers, they know, but they just deny.
Because,
no.
Because they like that they voted for a team and their team got elected, and that's that. And everything other than that it doesn't matter. It won't matter.
Yeah, just God help us all.
Yeah.
God help us all. Now you checked that website, right, for the truckers for tomorrow, and
Yep.
they didn't indicate that they're still scheduled to roll into there tomorrow, because I'm hearing that it might not be until Sunday.
Oh, really?
Now, someone messaged that, but I had not heard that. That's not the information that I had.
Let me get the website back up. All right, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
People thinking I'm telling lies. Here it is. This is a schedule, and every day it updates.
Yep.
And here's the schedule. Depart Cambridge, Ohio. Arrive Hagerstown, Maryland. Day 11, Saturday, March 5th. Depart Hagerstown, Maryland, and arrive at the DC Beltway. I mean, maybe they have events planned for Sunday or something. I'm not sure. I don't see any event schedule on their website for what is going to be happening with that.
Yeah, and as I say, I was having trouble getting feeds out of there tonight from some people that we know there. But yeah, I hadn't heard anything any different to this point. But of course, everything is fluid, right? But Sky Queen said that there's one of the convoys is about 80 miles outside of Washington, D.C. now. So yeah, I mean they're getting close, and it looks to me like everything's still rolling in there for Saturday. The truckers are all saying they are not moving tomorrow. Okay, well, we're going to have to dig in deeper. I'm going to reach out to some people. We won't have time to do this before we sign off tonight. I'm just going to check something else here. I know what to do. Hang on. With these trucks coming from so many different directions, and there's so many of them, yeah, I mean, I was in touch with a couple of people today, and they didn't mention anything to me about it changing to Sunday. One way or another, we will have live footage out of there tomorrow.
Yep.
And we'll see what happens. I expect that one way or another, a bunch of them will be there for tomorrow. And I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch more will show up on Sunday, because there are so many. It's huge.
Yeah, we'll all find out about this real soon, and everything's going to be cleared up before we know it. But yeah, they are very close to Washington, D.C. right now as it is. And yeah, just be prepared for anything, because...
So Sky Queen says maybe we'll see some drone footage. Yes, I expect we will tomorrow. Assume the schedule unless you hear otherwise. And that is, I mean, that's also why we're still saying tomorrow, because that's the official website that we showed you. That is the schedule that is posted right now. And as Brendan said, that has been updated on a daily basis as far as we know. Mm-hmm. And so we're using that as our guide. Sky Queen says the convoy is 50 miles long. Yeah, I've heard that it might even be longer than that.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a big event. I'm really hopeful that this is going to be very interesting, and I can't wait to see what Sleepy Joe's reaction is about this, and I hope to God that he's going to be forced to make a statement about it, and he'll be like, "Her, her, 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 her."
Yeah.
It's going to be hilarious.
And we're praying for all those truckers to stay safe out there tonight. And even though I told that guy to suck it up and all the people on the left to suck it up, I'm praying for you too. And even though I said to suck it up, I meant it in a loving way, because we love you. And we want you to come over and join us. We want you to have freedom too. And truth. And that's what we're doing here. We don't want to crush you. We don't want to defeat you in that way. We want things back to normal for everybody. We want Canada back for you too. We want you to be able to express your points of view without feeling threatened. Everybody.
Yeah.
Even people that we really don't agree with at all. Even people who want to shut us down and would do it in a heartbeat and take away our right to free speech. If you want to say that you don't think people should have free speech, we think you should have the right to say it. But that, again, is sort of our Achilles heel, right?
Absolutely. It's got to be a two-way street at some point, but hey, these we just need our country back. We don't need this division and wedges. We've seen it on this show before. There was once a time in Canada where you may have a blue sign outside your house and your neighbor had a red sign, and you'd still go golfing together, and you would still attend neighborhood barbecues and that sort of thing. Like,
yeah, my buddy 2 doors down. Yeah, He voted for the other guy. He voted for Justin, but he's still my friend.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what it is. These are political parties, and they answer to us, and we need to bring that back
if we can. And that's the thing, the people get along better than the politicians do. But the politicians keep trying to divide us. And the one thing that does unite us all is that we're all Canadian. We're all Canadians. And I'd like to think that that Canada is a free country. Was. And Deborah Hart says now they want us to show papers. Yeah. Things got to change. They've just got to change. And it's so disheartening tonight to see Randy Hillier saying he's not going to run again, saying that the political system is broken, saying that him not running also means that the Ontario First Party is basically dead before it ever got started. So
I wanted to bring that up after we broke that story at the beginning of this, is what would be the effect of that on it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's going to be, that's a lot of tight maneuvering. Like election time, it's just around the corner here.
Yeah. Well, it was, he was going to be the leader of the Ontario First Party. He was supposed to run for them in his home riding. And there were efforts underway to create this OFP, Ontario First Party, in time for the next provincial election. But there are other parties in place with him not running. And as I understand it, the organization of that effort just didn't take root. So I'm not sure. Don't quote me, but it looks to me like it's dead at this point. Maybe to be resurrected down the road. I don't know. But there's still the New Blue Party, the Ontario Party, and
well, they could.
We'll see.
Yeah, I don't. I won't speculate on Ontario First Party at this point. So yeah, we'll wait for details to come out, and I'm sure there will be some coming out very soon. And that'll be something that we could work on for the meantime, figure out what that landscape is going to look like.
Yeah.
This is going to be one of the craziest provincial elections Ontario has ever seen, I would say. So more to come on that.
Yeah. So with that being said, Brendan, it is 9 p.m. We've been on the air now for 3 hours. And
Yes,
yeah, we'll be back. Well, I'll be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If anything major happens between now and then, we will pop on with an emergency broadcast. If there's anything major out of Ukraine, anything that really that people need to be aware of, we'll be monitoring things here. Otherwise, we'll be back on it. I will be back on at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, and we'll talk about the People's Convoy, the demonstrations in Ottawa and elsewhere that are planned for tomorrow. We'll give you an overview, commentary, analysis, live footage where possible, and recorded footage to support what we need to support.
Perfect. And I'll be back on Monday. I do have obligations this weekend to attend to, so I will miss everybody out there, and I can't wait to be back and be able to bring more of the info war to everybody and have those discussions. In the meantime, if you haven't been able to yet or would like to, we do appreciate your support via donations at freedomreporters.com. That is freedomreporters.com. If you are unable to support us financially, you can also give us a big help by smacking the thumbs up button and subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. My name is Brendan Kennedy. Everybody have a great weekend. I can't wait to see you on Monday.
And I'm Rick Walker with Maverick News. We are the Freedom Reporters, and this is the antivirus program for your mind. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Catch you tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard.